the more willing you are to go through that process and trust every iteration and every pivot and every change and every mess up, the better off you're going to be.
You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Welcome, I'm Sarah Box, and you are listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast, a podcast where we showcase the powerful journeys of individuals who challenge limiting beliefs and live into their own unique purpose. And today I'm super thrilled to introduce you to Asia Dore. She is a dynamic brand strategist, and she has reinvented herself multiple times. She's worked across 8 industries. She now teaches entrepreneurs how to pair clarity with boldness in building brands that matter. That's a mouthful. So we're going to take it apart, and Asia is going to share a bit about all of that with us. She has a signature strategy and audacity approach that she uses, and that approach helps leaders align their own actions with who they are, and that empowers them to cultivate a deeper audience connection and brand sustainability. So all of that is super interesting to me on a number of levels. And she has navigated pivots to building impact-driven businesses. She's worked in 8 different industries, so we're going to talk about that as well. So Asia is here to share what it really takes to build a brand that's felt and not just seen. You know, because we can see brands, but then we can you'll see a brand and you have a memory or a feeling about that brand that really just touches your heart. So, and that's Asia's specialty in that. So enough of me talking. Let's formally welcome Asia to the podcast. Hi, Asia.
Hi, Sarah. That was an incredible introduction. I feel like I have big shoes to fill now. So you really set the bar high, but I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm great. I'm grateful that you have the time to be on the podcast because I think you bring a unique perspective. So I want to dive into this piece that you've worked across 8 different industries, and you have pivoted your business 4 times. So 8 industries, 4 pivots. What is a pivot you never would have foreseen, and that had a big positive impact in your personal and or professional life?
Well, the biggest, the most impactful pivot, I guess, is how I got to what I'm doing now. So I guess it was sort of my last one. I saved the best for last, but I started my business as a photographer back in 2014. And I pivoted within that industry to a lot of different specialties. You know, I focused on families, and then I focused on senior portraits and weddings. And I found my way eventually to branding photography and headshots. And I loved that work because as an entrepreneur, I really enjoyed working with other entrepreneurs. That was very exciting for me. But what I realized very quickly is that even though I was working with these brilliant people, these brilliant entrepreneurs who were so good at what they did, they were really doing quality work. They wanted incredible brand photography to represent the quality of their work. But when I started asking them to tell me about their brand, they really had no idea what I meant. They really had no idea what to say, what their brand even was. So the strategy became a really important part of my work as a photographer. And after a few of those sessions and a couple years later in 2020, I was like, you know what? The strategy is actually the part that really excites me. So I dropped the photography and now I just strictly focus on the brand strategy. And I had no idea that was coming. It was funny. I was going through my really old Instagram posts a while ago, and there was a post where I was like, I wouldn't call myself a brand strategist, but and then I went into this lengthy post about brand strategy. It's like, how did I not see that coming? But I didn't. And that's okay. I kind of just followed my intuition and my curiosity, and I ended up here.
So why do you suppose that it's so hard for entrepreneurs or business leaders to be able to talk about their brand? I'm guilty of it. So that's why I want insights. So why is it so hard for us to talk about it?
I think it's kind of a twofold problem. I think the first problem is that the mainstream branding industry really convolutes what a brand actually is. There's so much information out there, but it's really all kind of just regurgitated from other people's information, which really comes from like the corporate world, like corporate America world. And when we try to build our brands in the same way that a like trillion-dollar corporation does, it just doesn't work because those companies build their brands by pouring millions, maybe even billions of dollars into shaping our perception through marketing to say what their brand is. But as small business owners, as thought leaders, as leaders of nonprofit organizations, we don't always have the luxury of billions of dollars. So what we have to do is build our brands in a more genuine way. We have to really show up and do and say and share the things that genuinely make people feel about us the way that they want us, that we want them to feel about us. So it's really a lot simpler than I think the mainstream brand industry makes it out to be.
Well, that's a relief. So let's differentiate. You talked about them spending millions of dollars into marketing so they can help us think about them the way they want us to. So, okay, so let's separate those words for a moment. Just tell me the definition of a brand in your mind and how you help people come into it to own it and be able to express it.
Sure. A brand is really just a reputation. That's literally all it is. It's how someone feels about you. We like to think that we can control the narrative about ourselves and that we can shape our brands. And while yes, that is kind of true, at the end of the day, our brand isn't for us and it's also not determined by us. It's for our ideal clients and it's also determined by them. So unless we're like hooking them up to a machine that like changes their brain and into like some sci-fi movie to make them think the way that we want them to, unless we're doing that, or unless we're putting out propaganda or manipulating their perceptions in some way, the only thing left to do is show up with integrity and do and say and share the things that make them feel the way we want them to feel. So that's what a brand is. And actually, that's what brand strategy is as well, because it might make you feel sort of out of control, right? Like, well, if I can't control my brand, then what is the point of strategy? But it's really just bridging that gap between how do I want people to feel about me and my business or my organization, and what things do I need to show up and do and say and share in order to help people feel that way?
Okay, super. And now I'm changing up some of the questions I planned to ask you because I think that you're hitting at a high level of something that I think is happening at a deeper level amongst tons of people, and that is the thing of alignment, right? So because you talk about there's a strategy, so how am I going to show up to represent the brand I want people to understand? Do you find people have this external vision of the brand they want that is aligned or misaligned? Like, do you see a typical pattern especially for folks who are maybe having a little trouble with their strategy?
Yeah, I think, and this kind of brings me back. I said the answer was twofold. This is actually a perfect segue into the second part of it. You're such an expert at this, Sarah. So that's the second part is I think for the most part, people do know what they want their brand to be. But I think the roadblock that they run into and the misalignment that you're talking about is that they have, especially the clients I work with who are experts, right? They have all of this knowledge in their brain. They have all of these experiences, all of these methods and modalities that they pull from. They've created their own frameworks. They've made their own connections. It's just like, I don't want to say it's a mess in their brain, but it kind of is. It's just they know so much about so much and they can help people in so many ways. And they probably also have so many ideas about how their work can actually fit into the world, right? And that's why you have these brilliant entrepreneurs who have like way too many offers because they're like, there's all these ways I can help people. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? We want to be able to show up as experts and help people in the way that we help them. But the problem happens when we're unable to communicate what that actually is to other people. Communication is the most underrated branding tool. How are we clearly showing up to say, hi, this is me, this is what I'm about, this is the problem I solve. If you're experiencing XYZ, you might have this problem, let's work together, here's how I can help you. But when you know so much, it's hard to simplify. So the misalignment, I think, is really that's where it comes from. It's they know what they want their brand to be. They know all of the ways they can help people, but to them it's so obvious because they're the experts. It's not obvious to the people that they're helping, and so it turns into just kind of like this word vomit information dump. Let me share everything I know because I know I can help you. And that's really where the disconnect is. And that's why working with, a coach or a brand strategist or a copywriter or whoever makes sense for you to work with right now can help you pull out those ideas and package them up so that the people who need to hear the information that you're sharing can actually understand it.
So for people listening who've never attempted to do that, or who find themselves who have all this information and ideas, if you're feeling like your brain is bursting right now, welcome to the club. Because Asia, you described it so clearly. It's like there's all of these ways, right? But it's not helpful as a consumer, right? It's not helpful for me to know the 20 things I could do in this moment. It's most helpful for me to know the one or two things that would get me the first domino to fall so then I can continue on. So how does that fit into brand strategy? Like, how do you help people go, okay, way too much, and come down?
Beyond working with me.
Let's just assume we're working with you. I mean, you're the person here, you're the expert in the room right now. I don't want to pretend someone's working with someone else. So
okay, sure.
Working with you.
Okay, so yeah, then let me shift gears. So the way that I work with people is through my signature method, which is Strategy Audacity Method. And the way that this method sort of came into being is that the strategy part of brand strategy is really important, right? We need to be strategic about the things that we're saying and doing and sharing in order to attract the right people to us and help them make a decision about whether or not we are the right people for them. So the strategy part is important. But what I've seen and experienced through working with clients and just observing, right, on the internet, I have an online business, so I'm very much online in that capacity, is that people will focus completely on the strategy, right? This is my brand guideline. This is exactly what I need to say. These are my 5 content pillars and I will not stray. I'm not going to talk about political issues because that's not on brand for me, whatever it is, right? They put themselves in this box. And in some ways, that's a good thing because we want to be straightforward about what our brands are. On the other hand, that kind of brand is not compelling at all. Any human who is like a soulful person can see right through that, right? And this is obviously nuanced. It depends on the industry you're in and it depends on the clients you work with. But I would say for the most part, if you are in business to help other people, you're going to be working with other humans. So you kind of have to show up as a human yourself. Otherwise, like I say, they're going to see right through that, right? So there's the one category is the people who are strictly focused on strategy. The other category is the people who are multi-passionate and they want to implement all of their ideas and they're super passionate about a lot of different things. And they're very audacious in the way that they show up online, right? They will talk about whatever, whenever, it doesn't matter. They're talking about it. And while I love that courage, I love that boldness, I love the personality in showing up in that way, then we're missing out on the strategy piece. So we get back to that problem of, okay, we're just information dumping all of this stuff and everything we're thinking and everything we want people to know, but people are confused because there's too many messages going on. So that's where the Strategy Audacity Method came from, is let's balance both of those things. I really believe that if you want a brand that's equal parts profitable and impactful, you have to brand with both strategy and audacity completely balanced. Maybe not balanced all the time, right? But overall, you're showing up with both.
Okay, so this question comes from being an introvert and thinking, okay, so what's audacious for me versus, I'm guessing you might be an extrovert.
I am very much an introvert.
Okay, so you are in the situational extrovert phase. So I had a therapist one time, he says, no, you're an introvert. I said, how can you tell? And he says, I said, I'm out. I have to do all this public stuff. He goes, are you tired when you're done with that? And I said, exhausted. He goes, you're not getting any energy from that. You are situational and so you save your energy and you do your thing for the instant, and then you got to go. So you've got the extroverts and the introverts, or the people who are like, oh, I don't want to do it. How do you help us balance ourselves? Because it can be the right thing to do, and yet you might get resistance from the folks you're trying to help be a little more audacious in how they're communicating.
Well, it's kind of an annoying answer, but the reason why this method works is because you're not just being audacious to be audacious, you're being strategically audacious in the same way that you're being audaciously strategic, right? So let me just walk you through quickly, basically the 5 pillars of my signature method, because that might help bring clarity to it. Because that's true. Audacious is going to look totally different from me to you, right? And that's okay. It's also sort of an experiment, a trial and error. What feels good to show up as, what gets results. But yeah, let me go through this, and then that might help give a little bit more indication of how it's different for each person. So step 1 is basically the vision. So what we do first is figure out what you're actually trying to accomplish here, what you want for your business or your organization beyond just profit, and what kind of impact you actually want to make with your work. That's a really important part of me working with clients, is I need to work with people who are actually trying to do something here, right? They're trying to create some kind of change. And I know I don't have to explain that to you, Sarah, because you are the same, right? So what kind of gaps do you actually want to fill with your product or service? Beyond making money, what change are we trying to create? What are we trying to disrupt? Secondly, we move on to part 2, which is the catalyst, which is the client that I'm working with. We decide how all of your skills and knowledge and experience and talents all add up to form a really definitive expertise that makes that person uniquely qualified to create the exact impact that you're trying to make. And earlier when I was saying, you know, the confusing part is that there's so much going on in the brain. This is where we really pull it out. And I think anyone can do this themselves, right? With like a journal or a voice note or a friend. But I think the value of working with someone else is they're outside of your brain. They don't know the things, you know, as a coach, you know that. So that's step 2. Step 3 is the ideal client. Like I said earlier, our brands aren't for us, they're for our ideal clients. So we have to figure out who those people are. So we determine who's going to benefit the most from this client's expertise, why they're going to care about their work, and how the impact that you want to make in the world, like the big picture impact, how is that actually going to affect them in their everyday lives? So we zoom out and then we zoom back in, right? Step 4 is the soul. This is really, I think, the part where we get to be the most audacious. We figure out, okay, how do we refine your actual personality as a person, not a business owner, your beliefs, your ideals, your values. How do we refine that all into one really cohesive identity that's genuine to you, right? We're not manufacturing anything here. It's all genuine, in a way that allows you to be specific and strategic, but also allows you to be your real human self, because that's how you're going to be able to show up consistently. If you're manufacturing an identity, you'll probably get like a month or 2 of good content, and then you'll be like, well, I'm out of ideas because it's not coming from the soul. And then lastly, we sum all of that up into a message. We package it up into something really clear and concise that empowers you to show up frequently and consistently, and also say the same thing over and over and over and over again in fresh and new ways. So those are really the 5 steps that I bring people through when they work with me one-on-one. And like I said, really crucial that you're okay with trial and error and seeing what feels good and what's effective and what is like, okay, that's a no for me.
Do you find that people are reluctant to do the trial and error for not wanting to look not the expert they are, or like be conceived as, yeah, they don't know what they're talking about, or they're foolish? Because trial and error can be scary sometimes.
Trial and error, yes, trial and error is scary. I would say that some people, well, there's some people that come to me and they just want all the answers. They want me to deliver their brand to them on a silver platter, right? And those I found are not my people. My people are really invested in the process because it's coming from inside, right? They're not looking for external validation. They're not necessarily looking for, I want more profit. They're like, I have a lot of great ideas. I care about how I want the world to be, and I want my business to be the vehicle that delivers that. Sorry, that was a little bit of a
No,
tangent.
that you actually answered my question because you're talking
Okay.
about resonance, soul resonance
Mm,
with business resonance. Am
yes,
I on
beautifully put.
track?
Yes,
Yeah.
beautifully put. Yeah. So I've found with my clients, they're okay with the trial and error. And really, that's probably how they got to where they are now, where they are an expert, is because they found all the ways that didn't work, right? They
Yeah.
failed a lot, and now they're ready for more cohesion, and that's why they come to me. But I guess I would say to those people who are concerned about that, the brilliance of working on your brand strategy is that you have the logic to back up the claims you're making. You have the facts on your side. So if if you're scared, like, what if I post this and someone leaves a mean comment or they disagree? Like, that's great. You have an opportunity to have that back and forth in a public setting and share your ideas even more. So yes, that does take practice, but it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. And I think early on, if you can get the attitude of, I'm not really worried about what people say, bad or good, it's information. And it may not even be true, right? It's just information. Someone doesn't like this, but to you, like you said, they might not be my people. So
Yes.
the people I'm here to serve. So good information, it repelled them. Did anybody come who it resonates with? So I think sometimes when we can detach it from our own self-worth, it's just like, it's information. Let's see what's happening with it, right?
Yes, those are such wise words because it's
Well,
true. And I like how you said either way too, positive or negative or neutral.
yeah, it's just info. I tell myself that all the time when things aren't going. I go, it's just info. Just info. You have to decide
Yeah.
what you want to do with the info.
Yeah.
But the value of having someone like you, or you in particular, along for the ride is you understand what those things could mean and what not to worry about. And like, okay, that's really good feedback. And then how to have a deeper conversation around that and around the alignment with the strategic audacity approach. So, and as I know you can do that on your own and journaling and stuff, but we still get locked into our own thought bubbles, right? It's like, okay, this means that we don't know how to ask the challenging question even, or how to answer. Like, so how do I know that's true? I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a
But if
simple
it's not true, then what is, right? I mean, so there's all those questions, but sometimes you need someone to give you a little nudge to say, okay, you can believe that's true, but where will that take you next? And is that where you want to go? Will that shoot down your goal to go forward to this thing we've already created, that this is where you want to be and create? So I think it's good to have an external person that can be there as both your champion, but an uninvested colleague on your journey. They're invested in your success, but not necessarily your belief or in your limitations. And you can
So
push them.
true.
Yeah.
Even having someone outside of your industry, and this is true for me too, even having someone outside my industry who doesn't know the trends, who doesn't know the history, who doesn't know um, the general like consensus of things, to come in and just question stuff is so valuable because yeah, it's really easy to just get stuck in our little bubbles.
Well, and when they're from outside your industry or your field, you get really good questions. I mean, it's easy to have the tendency to bristle and go, well, what do you know? Right?
Right.
Because I'm in the industry and I see all the reports, blah, blah, blah. But those are people who are hearing it. They're hearing it, all the jargon and stuff, and going, what does this mean, Alice? It's like,
Yeah.
what's the point? And when someone asks you what's the point, and you have to answer in a way that someone outside can understand it, you've started to strip down all these technical terms and stuff and just said, the point is because they're trying to do X. Oh, thanks. I get it. Right. It's so easy when you're in that group speak or industry speak to get lost. But it's your norm.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I would just love to add to, especially the trial and error topic, is the more willing you are to go through that process and trust every iteration and every pivot and every change and every mess up, the better off you're going to be. Because the thing about a brand is that, yes, we want it strategic. Yes, we want it to be clear. Yes, we want to be able to communicate it to other people. but we also have to make sure it's flexible enough to where it can evolve with us, because like it or not, as humans, you're going to evolve. You're going to learn new things. Your perspectives are going to be changed. Your beliefs are going to shift around. And so the more comfortable we are with having those iterations happen, not only internally, but also be able to express them externally through our brand, better off we're going to be in the long run in terms of building a brand that actually lasts. That's why when you see people or companies rebrand all the time, partly I don't think they need to actually do that. They're just bored and want attention. But a lot of times you see entrepreneurs do that. And I kind of want to like just reach through my computer and shake people. It's like, you don't need a rebrand. You just need to recenter on who you are now and weave that into the brand you've already created. Like 9 times out of 10, you don't need a rebrand. Okay, that was another tangent, but just in terms of
because you're talking about sustainability, which was my next series of questions, right? Ooh, you should have been with me yesterday when I was previewing all of this. So, but really, sustainability, you were talking about that, the willingness to flex, to reevaluate where you are in your business and, you know, what's going on with you as a person, but also external in your work. Do I even want to serve those same people anymore, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the industry's changed, or what you have learned has opened you up to new things, like you did in your photography business. Like, you didn't see strategy and audacity coming down at you, but there it was. And you were open to hearing it and going, okay, you know, and accepting it in. So I think, can you talk some about how you've seen your approach, the strategic approach with Audacity, what the impact on that is of sustaining a company organization's mission over time?
Oh, that's such a good question. Okay, let me get my thoughts together on that. I believe that the reason why this method works is because it forces you to get down to the core nitty-gritty foundation of everything that you're doing. There's nothing about this method that asks you to rely on trends. There's nothing about this method that asks you to build a brand about what's happening even right now in the world. This is all just the very core parts of yourself. Or if you are, you know, building a brand as part of a group, like an organization, that still requires people. It still requires people's ideas. It still requires people's ideals, right? Their values. And so when we can get down to like the really nitty gritty core components, that's how you build a really, really strong foundation. You can't build a house by starting with the windows. You have to start with the foundation. So in terms of standing the test of time, those core things are probably not going to change very much, right? Your ideal client might change a little. Your message will probably change. You might change just as a person as you experience more things. Your organization might go through problems and iterations. But if you're building your brand on that foundational stuff first, it's just going to make any renovations you make to your house / brand so much easier, because you don't have to take the whole thing apart. All you have to do is you know, change the wallpaper, whatever it is.
Well, no, I like that analogy, because it really is, if you're solid in your foundation, you can quickly use it as a filter when opportunities come up and say, does this fit? Does this fit now? The answer may be yes, it fits, but it fits in 2 years from now because we're not there yet, right? But to be able to simplify and go, is this right for us now, or right for me now, or whatever the business model is, it takes stress off. And then when you're talking to other people, they can have confidence that you know where you're going, and they're not going to call you tomorrow and you say, oh yeah, we changed our mind.
Right.
Well, you know, I can make fun of it, but I think people want to know, especially they can count on you or your team, whether it's you or you've got someone else in the lead now, that your brand is solid, you know, and you're not going to bail on them. Because I know for me, a lot of my clients, they just want to know they can touch base sometimes and have that.
Yeah.
get
Yeah,
a gut check. Their intuition's pretty good now, and they just need a gut check.
sure. Just a quick little Sarah in the pocket situation. But yeah, no, and that really does help build trust. You know, when people can rely on what your brand is, that helps build trust. And I love what you said about it acts as a filter for making those decisions, because that's one of the best parts about having a brand strategy is it makes your business or organization so much more efficient. You know what to say no to, you know what fits, you know your mission, you understand where you're going. So it's like, is this a detour? Does it make sense? Is this an opportunity I should capitalize on? Or does it's just a no for me right now, and feeling really confident, I think, in saying no.
Yeah. I know we all like to have a lot of options, but sometimes they're distractions, and they're not right for us right now. So it's not no forever, but just not yet, not now. I wanted to talk a little bit about, brand and storytelling and how you see those things. First of all, what's the difference in your mind between them, and then how you see that they can elevate one another, if they can elevate one another.
Yeah, I think especially for your audience, like the listeners of this podcast, it makes sense to prioritize storytelling, get better at storytelling. I'll be honest, this is something that does not necessarily come natural to me. I'm a strategist, right? Like we were talking about data before we started recording. It's like, I want the information, I want the facts, I don't want the fluff. And so I tend to communicate that way as well. So just so everybody knows, like I'm not an expert at storytelling, but what I can tell you is that, like I said before, your brand is your reputation. It's how people feel about you. Branding is all about emotion. Storytelling is the best way to bring about emotion. That's just how we're wired as humans. And I know I was just listening to the episode. I can't remember his name, but he talks about conversion stories. That was a fantastic episode. So go listen to that, because that's probably he's probably a lot more qualified to be talking about storytelling. But it is important to be able to convey your message in a lot of different ways. You're going to get sick of it. You're going to get sick of your message. You're going to get bored of it. You're going to want to be like, oh, I should rebrand because I'm bored of this. But if you're bored of it, that's a good sign. That means you're talking about it enough. The trick is, how can we use our message as a lens through which to tell all of these stories or share all of this information? And when you understand your brand strategy and you understand your message, it's actually really easy to do that. Like he was talking about the shark cage, right? Being in the shark cage. I was like, yes, that's so brilliant. And it's such a powerful thing to be able to do that in our marketing, in our messaging. How can I frame this story through the lens of my actual message? I had another thought, and it's gone now because I went on another tangent. Dang it!
I feel for you. I feel for you, my sister, because I do that all the time. Or if you interrupt in the middle of telling you something, I'm thinking, okay, and then what were we talking about? So take a beat. You remember it?
I think yes. So what I was going to say with that is that, yes, the storytelling is crucial because it taps into emotion. But the thing that I really want to say about that is having, again, the logic to back up that emotion is going to make your storytelling so much more powerful. I volunteered with a dog rescue a few years ago, and I kind of joined the team because they just needed help online. They needed help with their social media and their website. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I know how to do all these things, right? I know how to do branding. So that's how I came to work with them. They were doing such incredible work. The stories were devastating about these dogs, right? Being dumped or abandoned or neglected. And they were talking about that, but they were talking about it, I want to say, kind of inconsistently. They were also very scientific, here are the facts situation, right? Which is great. But that doesn't really appeal to someone who's just scrolling and they're just seeing the facts, like, oh, that's sad. When we can really tap into here's the actual story of what happened. And more importantly, here's why you should care about it, right? That's when you're going to get people to actually take the action. So it kind of has to be both, which I guess now that I'm saying this out loud, it kind of comes back to the strategy audacity thing, right? We need to strategically share the facts, the real true facts, but we also need to audaciously get a little bit, I don't know, sappy with it. Not again in a manipulative way, but just in a way that actually conveys what is going on here and like, why is this why is this a problem that these dogs are getting abandoned and neglected and dumped on the side of the freeway, right? Why is that a problem? Why you should care about it? Here's what we're doing. Here's what you can do. Here's how your gift of $5 can make such a huge difference, right? So really balancing the facts with the storytelling is the sweet spot.
Well, and giving folks a solution so they can take some action. Because in what your example, they said, here's what you can do about it. Because I think so often in working in nonprofits, it's very easy to say, here's how many people we serve. These are the terrible conditions or whatever. But it'd be nice to have an uplifting story and like, hey, Frank over here donated this. And because of this, this group over here now has a different experience. It's so simple. Hey, Frank, what was that like for you? You know, and Frank can tell the story. But part of it is it's all built on your foundation, though. So you started with who are you trying to communicate with? What are the pillars, if you will? Because then you can come back to your core. So you're not just telling somebody else's story, but it matters to you. And that's evident when you tell it. At least as I'm hearing you about when you're talking about the dog rescue.
Right. Yeah. And that's such a, thank you for also bringing in the good stories, the happy stories.
Sure.
Yes, that's so critical. And being able to share, again, just share your message in all of these types of ways is just going to be so beneficial, not just for you showing up to create content or, get the speaking gig or whatever, but it's also going to be really refreshing for your audience because you're not saying literally the same message over and over again. You're just saying it in different ways that will keep them interested.
How many dogs did you adopt?
I already had one and she doesn't like other dogs, so I was safe, but it was very difficult, especially when they were puppies.
Oh, I know. It's like when someone says, hey, just take a look at these puppies. It's like, no, thanks. No way I can just take a look and walk away.
Put the blinders on. Yeah.
I will work from afar.
Right.
No, we just adopted a rescue and he's finally settling in, but he was an older dog. And then I posted on social media and someone I don't know said, hey, is that Jasper from this rescue place? I'm thinking, yeah, it was just random. And because they're not right next to us. So it was kind of funny, but, I just am such a sucker for dog stories, but I do need an uplifting story because there's enough of the bad ones out there.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to ask you to do a couple things as we wrap this up. I'd like for you to tell folks a little bit about where you want them to reach out to you, your best places to reach out to you. But you also have a master class, your 5 things you need to position yourself as an expert. Can you share a little bit about that? How we can contact you, and then I'll ask you my very last question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying not to be on social media right now, which has been amazing. I'm trying to do more things like this, where I just talk to other humans. But you can contact me via my website. It's just asiadore.com, and my email and everything is on there. And yes, my master class is really just walking you through the 5 steps that you need to position yourself as an expert in your industry. So I would say this is probably more geared to entrepreneurs who are really brilliant, but their expertise is not translating in the way that they want, whether that's the type of clients they're working with or the opportunities they're receiving. So it's probably more geared towards those people. Because it's one thing to just be an expert, right? It's one thing to know you're an expert, and that's very important. We have to show up confidently and audaciously when it comes to that. But when you actively brand yourself as an expert, that's a little bit of a different thing because you're strategically and audaciously positioning yourself and choosing to be known for one definitive thing. And that sounds kind of scary for people who are very multi-passionate and help people in a lot of ways and have a lot of depth to their work. But it's not about boxing you into just doing one thing. It's really about taking everything, all of the stuff that's in your brain that makes you, valuable and an expert at what you do, and packaging it up in a way that means one thing to your ideal client, because then they will know how what you do is relevant to them, which is crucial if you want to actually get people to pay attention to you and follow through with being in your world and hopefully working with you. So yes, that's on my website too. It's just asiadore.com/masterclass.
Okay, so I want to give you the last few seconds to leave us with a quote or thought that will help us get off the dime and move into being a better brand strategist, or going to your website and getting the start, get the brand strategy masterclass. But leave us with something so that folks who are maybe find themselves in a pivot they didn't plan to be in, or they're thinking, I don't even know how to start this, can be inspired to start.
I'm not at a loss of what to say. I'm at a loss of just one thing to say, because I feel
okay, you could if there's more than I get it. So I'm not going to box you in that much, but I don't want you to have a 20-minute dissertation.
Okay, that's fair, Sarah. That's fair. Okay. To that person, what I would say is that everything that you have experienced and learned and taught and changed about yourself and impacted the world, all of that stuff, regardless of what it is, has all added up into the expertise that you have now. None of it is useless. None of it is throwaway, right? There's lessons to be learned in everything. The stuff that you have gone through to get to this point is the thing that makes you an expert at what you do. So now it's just about how do we clearly and concisely explain what that expertise is to other people in a way that they will care about. And that's actually really simple. There's only 5 steps. You need to figure out exactly what you do, exactly who you do it for, exactly how you do it differently than everybody else who's doing technically the same thing, exactly why it matters in the grand scheme of the world, and then take all of that and go share it over and over and over and over again until you're absolutely sick of it. 5 steps. That's how simple branding is.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Asia, for being a guest on the No Labels, No Limits podcast. This has been really fun for me. I've learned a lot from you, and I have some things to consider as a result. And for all of our listeners, if you know somebody who maybe has shared with you that they're struggling with this area, or they're thinking, I hate doing this, please share this episode with them, because sharing really is caring when done with that intent. And we would really love if you would leave a rating and review, because the more people who do that, the wider our reach gets, and the more people we can help with the No Labels, No Limits message. And until next week, thank you all and have a great week, and we'll see you when you come back.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic business coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/No Labels, No Limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. Please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Till next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.